right now. It is time for a chat with Pat. It's Thursday, so it's Joni.
That's right, Joan Watson today. You know her from being here every Thursday. She is an author. She is a speaker, all-around wonderful person. And we have been going through her book, Making a Pilgrimage, a companion for Catholics. And Joni, welcome again to the show, and thanks for always taking this time on Thursdays with us. Really appreciate it.
Oh, good morning. Thanks. It's great. It's always great to be here.
Well, one of the things, Joni, that I love about this book, and I know we've said it before, is anybody can read it because you don't have to be actually going on a physical pilgrimage. It is kind of speaks to your pilgrimage through life. And I think this chapter that we've been talking about, the chapter on Rome, really does that. Last week we talked about how Martin Luther went to Rome and on pilgrimage and was just appalled at what he saw and the behavior. And then we saw Catherine of Siena, who does a penitential pilgrimage. And today, I love this because we just celebrated this feast day this week of the second apostle to Rome. So tell us a little bit about who you entitled the second apostle to Rome.
Yeah, so it's St. Philip Neri, who, as you mentioned, we just celebrated his feast day. And he's known as the second apostle to Rome because he re-evangelized the city. So we talked last week about how Martin Luther was scandalized by what he found in Rome when he went on pilgrimage, the abuses in the church. And we know the church was in need of reformation. The church is always in need of reformation because we are the church, and we're always in need of reformation.
And we're simple people.
Philip's response, similar to Catherine, is not to leave the church, is not to, break away from the church, but to reform the church by encouraging people to reform themselves, by turning people, back to the Lord in conversion. And so he's known as the second apostle to Rome because he bears so much fruit. I should say the Lord bears fruit through him in the city, and really the city becomes once again this kind of bastion of Catholic orthodoxy and rich culture. Some of the things that Philip establishes in his own oratory, lay learning, lay study amongst the laity, song, culture, Catholic culture, pilgrimage, all that great stuff. And Philip really is kind of ushers in this new, counter-reformation in a sense.
Well, I have two questions on this, Joni. My first one, though, has to do with, you make mention that obviously after the Protestant Reformation, pilgrimages to Rome kind of die down. And you talked about, like, Henry destroying shrines, that shrines were destroyed. What types of shrines were actually destroyed? Do you know?
So for Henry VIII, it was in England. So Henry VIII, when he starts his Reformation in England, he destroys the very famous Marian shrine of Walsingham, which actually he had protected when he was considered a great Catholic king, and then he destroys the shrine, and it's recently been rebuilt, and you can go to Walsingham now. Henry VIII destroys Canterbury, so we pretty much lose the tomb of St. Thomas Becket in Canterbury, which is one of the oldest pilgrimage sites in England. So pilgrimage dies down, especially in England. It was suppressed. The shrines were destroyed, but we even see kind of pilgrimage drop off in other parts of Europe as, really Protestantism condemns pilgrimage as being a work and unnecessary.
Oh, got it. Great connection for us. Yeah. The other thing about Philip Neri, I have a question. He started something known as the picnic in response to the carnival. So first of all, tell us what the carnival is, and then tell us about the picnic.
Yeah, so Philip Neri starts kind of a response to carnival, which is we would maybe call it Mardi Gras in especially in New Orleans. Basically Fat Tuesday, right? Okay. Carnivale, farewell to meat. It was the pre-Lent celebration that we still find today, and there's nothing wrong with celebrating before Lent. We believe in feasts and fasting, but there were a lot of abuses connected to carnival by that point. Drunkenness, debauchery, just all you can imagine. Right. And so he says, Philip Neri says, there's nothing wrong with feasting. before you fast, but let's do it properly. And so he starts this pilgrimage to 7 major churches in Rome, the 4 major basilicas, and then 3 minor basilicas. And it's continued today. You can walk in one day, you can walk on foot to each of those 7 basilicas. And he would lead people in song. They would have a picnic out at often in the Appian Way when they were out by the Church of St. Sebastian. He would preach. They would celebrate Mass. And eventually, we're talking hundreds, maybe even thousands of people were on this pilgrimage to such an extent that he got called in by the Inquisition and was like, "What are you doing? Right? Is this good?" And he was found, of course, innocent. But so that was one way he kind of revitalized culture. But we see here that these were Romans going on pilgrimage in their own city, reminding us, like you said at the beginning of the segment, that we can all go on pilgrimage anywhere. It's our intention. It's our state of mind. Much more than it is the location per se. And so if you have the intention to go somewhere, to pray, to offer sacrifice, you can make a pilgrimage in your own city.
So the other thing with Philip Neri that you mentioned here, when you talk about this Roman tradition of the 7 church pilgrimage, is that tied to what we now kind of are putting out there as part of Holy Thursday? The 7 church visitation, is that tied to what Neri did?
They're probably all connected, yes. So that is a tradition in Rome as well, that on Holy Thursday you visit, and we never counted. We just kind of went from church to church because they're all across the street from each other. You can fit probably 20 in one night if you need to on Holy Thursday in Rome. But it is the same idea of making pilgrimage, and offering right there in your own city. So connected, yes.
Okay, so the other one that you talk about in this chapter, I don't know if we'll get into her a lot, but let's just start the journey with Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. How is she tied to this pilgrimage in Rome?
Yeah, so I wanted to definitely mention her in the Rome chapter. You've mentioned before, the Rome chapter is pretty packed because so many saints go on pilgrimage to Rome. And I like to remind people that when we go on pilgrimage to Rome, we're not just walking in the footsteps of Peter or, Philip Neri or those who lived in Rome. We're also walking in the footsteps of other pilgrims. And if anybody's read Thérèse's autobiography, Story of a Soul, they know that she too went on pilgrimage to Rome. Her father took her and her sister on pilgrimage before she entered the Carmel, before she entered the convent. And she really thought, okay, I'm going to go and ask Leo XIII himself, the Pope, if I can enter the Carmel at a young age. So they make this pilgrimage connected to their parish. I mean, it was kind of neat. It was a group from France that goes on pilgrimage, not that unlike what we do now.
Sure.
We all go together on, parish pilgrimage, and they went to many, many sites in France and Italy, including Rome. And so I definitely wanted to talk about her experience.
Now, you kind of also make the statement that people might have wanted her to go on that to discourage this vocation. What was that all about?
Yeah, they thought this girl hasn't seen the world, right? She's young. She wants to go to the convent. Her sisters are in the convent. This is all she knows. And so we need to, she needs to see the world, and then she'll realize there's more out there. Like maybe she'll meet a nice Italian man, right? This might sound familiar. We know people who do this, right?
That's right.
Oh, well, they want to go to the priesthood. They just don't know better, right? We need to expose them to the world.
Yeah.
And it didn't have that effect. Thérèse actually was like, I need to get out of this world. I need to go to the convent. She was ready to enter when she got home.
Oh, I love it, Joni. Thank you so much. Things kind of change but stay the same, don't they?
That's right. That's right.
Well, thanks, so and you have a great weekend ahead, okay, Joni?
You too. God bless.